Okay, today I want to talk to you about why the vegan diet does not work for everyone. In fact, it's not even close. It doesn't even close to work for everyone. But there's yet a big push in our culture today to try and get everybody to go vegan. And there's a lot of money behind this push. It's very influential. You're familiar with it, I'm sure. I just did a DNA consult with a client from the country of India, and I've got the email pulled up here. And I just want to tell you a couple of main points here from his email. By the way, he's a vegan, and it's for religious reasons. He says one of his goals is he doesn't want to feel totally drained after one intimacy session, he calls it, and then he doesn't feel good for a few days after. That's the first thing, sex drive. Second, he wants to be able to better handle stress. He wants better cognitive performance because he has brain fog and delayed response. This is very common in people with veganism. He wants to build muscle. He says, as of now, when I exercise, I tend to gain more fat and not the muscle. And he wants to get rid of hair loss. Well, good luck. I've got hair loss. If I knew how to cure hair loss, I'd have a Nobel Prize and billions of dollars, or at least a lot of money. So can't help you there, but in terms of the vegan diet, obviously he's got a number of genes that don't fit well with that diet. And by the way, I asked him, did your ancestors eat meat for hundreds of years? Not just like your parents, but I'm talking like grandparents after that. And he says, yeah, of course. So this is a relatively new thing. Whether it's a new religious thing, I'm not sure. Wasn't totally clear, but it's definitely a new thing. And if you've ever seen the TV show Alone, it's very entertaining. They put people out in the wilderness to survive and see who can survive the longest. And these people they self-film. They have cameras. The camera crew comes in like once a week to change their batteries, but really they're on their own. And sometimes you get these plant-based people that come in and they love plants and everything's about plants and they know how to identify all the plants. And after about 2 weeks, they're looking for meat. And that's what they say. They're like, I'm looking for some meat.
Crowberries here. I'd love to stop and pick them and have a little breakfast. Crowberries are definitely changing. The foliage is getting more orangey, and I feel like the berries are going to be drying up, so I'm trying to fill my gullet now. Check it out. Not a bad handful of crowberries. Alright, that feels like about all I can manage. I think maybe it's because my body actually really wants animal food. I'm really hoping for red meat and large game. I think that's the only real long-term sustainable strategy for being out here.
And it's pretty hilarious because meat is so nutrient dense. It's so energy effective for when you're out surviving. Our ancestors ate meat. There's no question about it. So what you're doing when you're going into a vegan or a vegetarian diet is you're moving away from your ancestral history. You're moving away from your body's design, your DNA's design, and into something new. You're a scientific experiment. And that's okay. If you want to be a part of that scientific experiment, that's okay. I just want you to realize it's a scientific experiment. I'm not going to tell you how to deal with your own health. I just want to tell you what I think is optimal for most people. And it's definitely not vegan diet. This idea that most people should be on a vegan diet is crazy. Why? Well, for a lot of reasons. First of all, meat has creatine, meat has citrulline, meat has carnitine, meat has carnosine, meat has a lot of bioavailable zinc. It has a lot of things. And you could say, well, let's just supplement all of those little things. Well, the problem is, in science today, a lot of people pretend like we know everything about it. We pretend we totally understand what's all in plants and what's all in meat. But if you run these products through a mass spectrometer and you look at the individual components, there's thousands of different proteins, there's thousands of different sugars, there's thousands of different components that we don't know anything about. We don't really study these things. So there's a lot more going on than just a couple of vitamins and minerals when you're comparing plants versus animals. So it's actually pretty challenging. And nobody knows the full extent of deficiency when you're eating meat versus when you're eating plants. So that's the first thing. We really don't have this phenomenally deep knowledge about all the different components in plants and all the different components of meat and why you would get deficiencies if you're eating plants. So anybody who tells you that they totally know all the different things that they're supposed to supplement if they're on a vegan diet and they're filling in all the gaps, well, they just don't know what they're talking about, and that's okay, but that's just the fact. The other aspect of the vegan diet that's really problematic, when I do DNA consulting, and I see this all the time, the people that do terrible on vegan diet are the people with poor gut genes usually. So if you have a sensitive gut, you almost always have a lot of trouble with plants in general. I'm not talking about just gluten. I'm not talking about one specific type of plant. I'm talking about plants. And a lot of people also have a lot of dairy sensitivity genes. So that's definitely inflammatory for a lot of people. A lot of people. And what happens is they go vegan or vegetarian, and they by doing so, they get rid of dairy. And then they feel amazing, and they say, yeah, like, vegan is amazing. And then 2 years later, their testosterone's in the toilet, their health is in the toilet, and they've got the brain fog, they've got the sex drive issues, on and on and on, and the hair loss apparently. But it's a lot of it goes back to the gut genes, because if you're sensitive, if you have a sensitive gut, plants are challenging for your gut. For some people, they can handle that challenge. It's no problem. For other people, it's too much of a challenge. It's too much inflammation. It's too much of a burden on their gut lining. And you can look at fiber for this as an example. There was a study, they looked at fiber and constipation. So the title of the paper was a little deceptive because you'd think, it's just about constipation. But when they were actually looking at constipation, anal bleeding, which is way worse, bloatedness, and a bunch of other things. And sure, all the people that they had to partake in the study had all these things. They had anal bleeding, constipation, etc. And when they gave them high fiber, a couple of them did better. They only tested about 6 people with high fiber diets, but like 4 of them still had anal bleeding and things. There were still a lot of health problems. But when they went completely with zero dietary fiber, no dietary fiber, all of the anal bleeding went away, all of the constipation, all of the bloatedness, all of the abdominal pain, all of these problems went away. Why? Fiber is challenging for your gut. Fiber is challenging. Your body doesn't have fiber. If you cut open your arm, there's no fiber there. Plants have fiber. It's specific to plants. It's not something your body needs. It's not like a necessary nutrient. Your plants have photosynthesis machinery. They convert sunshine to energy. You don't have any of that. So plants have totally different proteins. They have totally different fiber. They have totally different fats. They have all these polyunsaturated fats. We have more saturated fats. Animals, if you eat a bunch of animal fat, as you know, has more saturated fat. Doctors sometimes say, don't eat saturated fat. Why not? It's in your body. It's perfectly natural. It's perfectly normal. It's perfectly healthy. Don't eat cholesterol. Why not? Your body has plenty of cholesterol. It's perfectly normal. We'll do a video. I'm going to link it up here on cholesterol. We'll talk about that. We'll debunk that. That's nonsense. This idea you shouldn't eat cholesterol, like don't eat egg yolks, nonsense. But getting back to vegetarian, those plant materials that are so foreign, the fats, the proteins, all the different things, the cell walls, the differences between the plant cell and your body means when you eat it, the transition is very challenging for your body. Again, not too challenging for a lot of people, but some people it's too challenging. Meat, on the other hand, guess what? Your body's made of meat. When you eat meat, that transition is very smooth into your system. So if you've got a giant bowl of spinach and it says on the label 100% daily value zinc, and you've got the little tiny hamburger patty and it says on the label 100% daily value of zinc, when you eat that giant bowl of spinach, you hardly get any zinc into your system because the zinc is all wrapped up in these plant proteins and you basically just pass it out at the other end. Now when you eat that meat, you get that 100% daily value of zinc. You assimilate almost all of it. And I know this because people that are carnivore, I'm friends with a lot of them, their stools, they have very few stools because their body is assimilating so much of that nutrition. And you can argue about the numbers with scientific studies about bioavailability and all this, and people do that, and that's fine. And meat is the clear winner in those arguments. But again, we don't know everything, but I'm telling you, if you've got a very sensitive gut, be open-minded about avoiding plants. Don't accept this cultural nonsense that plants are amazing and meat is terrible for you. By the way, when they study meat, they're almost always studying bologna, salami, summer sausage. They're studying a bunch of processed meats that have been sitting on shelves for 2 years sometimes. Their expiration dates are like 3, 4, or 5 years in the future. They're full of chemicals and preservatives. They're not studying meat. when they do those studies. And then the other studies they do are questionnaire studies where they ask people if they eat meat, like how often do you eat at McDonald's and that kind of thing. And then they say, oh, meat is bad because we did a questionnaire study. It's absurd. Don't fall prey to that nonsense. Pay attention to your own health. Take matters into your own hands. Stay healthy. Eat meat. Your ancestors did it. You should too.